chargers. Even if you write a very good Python tutorial and you try to charge for a book, maybe a person sometime will produce an equally good book, which will be free, and then you have to compete with free. So the market competes towards zero. Basically, it's a race to the bottom. With computers, you cannot have that because computers would have to be manufactured in some ways. But even with software now, how do you charge a person for a web browser? It's impossible to do that. And Opera used to try and do that with ads or with all kinds of tricks. And I suppose with phones, they can do a licensing deal for a browser. But basically, it's a race to the bottom when you have no cost associated with duplicating the thing. And that's fine. That's kind of natural. And you have to find new business models around that. You need to try and reform, in some cases, the copyright law or the practices of businesses and how you trade and how you compete with other businesses. Because those who don't do that have to, make some change.
Well, there's a couple of things on there. The reason I said maybe was there was a story maybe a week ago about Google being pressured to remove the torrent suggestions in their search results by, I think it was the BSA. So that when you type in, for example, I don't know, Iron Man 2, the word torrent doesn't autocomplete. So, I mean, they think that's going to help. But that was one thing. But the other example that I keep giving, that for the people who say, well, every sale, every person that downloaded something free of charge would have bought it. And I say this, in the UK there's a newspaper called the Metro. Now the Metro is for people who travel on the bus or travel on the train to work or to college or whatever, especially from a train station or a bus station. They'll find that early in the morning you'll find a newsstand and it's free. The Metro is a free newspaper. You pick it up when you go into the train station. You sometimes find that there's a lot of people standing on the platform reading the Metro newspaper. You get on the train, you sit down, and someone further back on that journey has got up and they've left their copy of the Metro on the chair, on the seat. So you've got something to read during your journey. Now that's a free newspaper. It's funded by advertisements and things like that. So for the people that say, if the only people that would actually read that are those that would have paid anyway, do a little experiment. Lock up these Metro newspapers and charge them, say, 20 pence. Just really, it's not that much for a daily newspaper. It's okay. And insist that the only way you get the Metro newspaper is you put 20 pence in the slot and it spits one out, and see how much your readership goes. And for people who say that they would have bought it anyway, the readership wouldn't have changed. But I'll guarantee you, in the real world, most people only read the Metro because it's something to read on the train and it's free of charge.
Yeah, I mean, just staying on that subject and playing devil's advocate, what should be mentioned here as well is that it was alleged that Avatar, the movie that I hated, I don't think Gordon liked either, if memory serves me correctly.
I quite liked it.
Oh, did you? I beg your pardon. Well, the movie I hated anyway, Avatar, was apparently the most downloaded movie of this year. Yet it's also the largest grossing movie of this year as well, I believe. So if people are going to argue that there is a detrimental effect to profit margins and revenue from piracy, the figures tend to dispute that somewhat, because if it was downloaded on the massive scale that we're led to believe it was, then really Avatar shouldn't have made the money it did. Something's going wrong somewhere. So there's a bit of conflicting view there, really, in respect of how much damage piracy or copyright infringement does to an industry. And certainly if you look back to the revenues from the 80s and the 90s, I would hazard a guess that these days, although our productions cost a lot more to make, they're actually taking a lot more money as well, and profits are up rather than being hampered by piracy, is my suggestion.
Especially when they sort of remaster it in a sort of fake 3D, slap the 3D on it and charge an extra $5 at the cinema, just for the privilege.
Having said that, I'm saying all this whilst, on one hand, if anybody read my blog about me being spot on with my wife's presents, one of my wife's presents was Avatar, the movie, in Blu-ray. So I'm buying into that, probably that same market. But there you are. Right, sorry, Roy. Was there anything else you wanted to add on that topic, or have we got another one to dredge out of the pile?
Actually, yeah, I wrote about sorry, I wrote about 10 posts this morning. I was looking forward to writing about mostly things to do with Apple and Microsoft. They've been having some issues recently, both companies, and one of them, the major thing, was the apparently Silverlight is being not just killed by Microsoft, but it is being abandoned by some of their biggest customers, which I think is encouraging and relevant to us because, as you probably know, the GNU/Linux users and BSD users could not access certain content and certain websites and certain services as well, things to do with video, mostly, sometimes with DRM, sometimes without. And the other issue they had is if they did try to access these content, they were at least told they could download this thing called Moonlight, which was dependent on Mono. One of those Trojan horses where if you want to access a website, you have to install Mono first, and then in addition to installing Mono, which is not always possible with this, this plugin was specifically for very few browsers and certain platforms and all kinds of issues. So anyway, what I'm trying to say here is that the web is a lot happier now because the number of proprietary plugins seems to be reduced. And today I also inquired to see when YouTube is going to be compatible with WebM for all the videos, because VP8 has been acquired and they've been working on it for a while. And I think it was November when they spoke about having encoded about 80% of the videos in free format, so you can actually view them in HTML5. In case anybody wonders why it's important, I think it's extremely important for all sorts of reasons. One of them is you will have better access in mobile devices to services, not just like YouTube and Google, but all kinds of things that use Flash and use streaming videos seem to be moving towards HTML5. And now one of the major companies to abandon Silverlight is Netflix, which doesn't mean much to me because I'm not in the United States. But for people in the United States, this was one of those major issues, with Linux, so I cannot access Netflix and I cannot access this and that. Apparently they will move to HTML5. It's not really assured yet, but it probably will happen. And Silverlight in general seems to be fading away with the lack of dependency on Silverlight, on Flash and Silverlight when it comes to video websites. It seems very foreseeable that you will have all the video sites and all the content and things to do with multimedia in general being available as HTML and viewable in all the web browsers, and that's extremely important. Any person who wants to have mobile internet and wants to have free software alone for internet access.
Yeah, Flash isn't great, but at least it's cross-platform. And okay, the Linux client or the Linux player isn't all that hot. It's kind of.
It depends what you mean by platform. Though I don't just mean the main three platforms. You have to remember they don't really cater for ARM processors. And one of the issues I had yesterday is a friend of mine in Manchester. I gave him one of my old PCs, and this is a PC that's from 2005. And I had installed for him Ubuntu 7.04 because the computer is not really strong enough to handle the latest KDE or KDE 4, so it uses KDE 3. And one of the things he told me is even though I installed Flash on it, it was Flash 8 at the time, and he could not access the iPlayer, which is the BBC supplied kind of access to videos he had already paid for as a taxpayer. So he couldn't access from this computer the iPlayer, and he couldn't access the content because they required Flash, and Flash 8 was not new enough, and he couldn't install Flash 10 unless he of course installed the latest Ubuntu, which he couldn't because he couldn't even boot the CD. He didn't have enough memory to really boot KDE 4 on 256 megabytes of RAM. So this is a case where Flash was standing between him and using Linux on a reasonably okay desktop. He had to install a whole new distro just to install this, stupid plugin to just play some stupid content, which should just be, encoding the videos. If it was just MPEG-4 normal video, they would just send him the files, and this is a reasonably good computer. It would have played it just fine. And this is a case, I call it Adobe trash now, and not Adobe Flash, because sometimes it does stand in your way. And a person that you want to convert to Ubuntu is pretty reasonably happy with that. as soon as they hit Flash, that's the last straw because they cannot access content, they cannot access videos too well.
The odd thing about Flash is it's one